There are 2 free vehicles that you can pick up as part of this brand new operation that you can find on the season challenges and then the challenges, which is the Imperium, or you can pick the Orcs. 2 different challenges of which you can only pick one. So what tank do you pick to get for free? We have the Teethbreaker, which is the Orcs faction of the Warhammer 40,000 event that's going on right now on World of Tanks. And then we also have the Cold War equivalent, which is actually a vehicle that I love within this game. It's the Ignis Pachio, which is essentially a Cold War era 2 medium tank that is a ton of fun, whether you, like myself, play a ton of World War II or someone that plays a ton of Cold War. This tank is really fun. It is a Batchat variant with missile launchers, but we'll get into the breakdown of both of these vehicles, starting with the Teethbreaker. Is this the tank that you want to actually pick up for free from this event? Well, let's have a look. So first off, the Teethbreaker has a feature which is quite unique and novel to at least this vehicle as a light tank within the tier 9 zone. This is the Teethbreaker, but has 2 different speed modes. Now there is a standard mode whereby you get all of the statistics of the tank are kind of remain constant, and then you get the turbo mode, which is essentially the same as what you see with the CS63. This is the Polish medium tank in the game, and essentially it basically boosts your speed as per the turbo mode. But the problem with going into the turbo mode is that you become less accurate, and so it can obviously cause you to miss a lot more shots. So it's a fine line between using the turbo mode with this vehicle and using the standard mode of the tank, which is what this tank's all about. With 62 kilometers an hour top speed, it really does feel super good as a standard mode. And then when you go into the turbo, it goes into overdrive, at which point you can go up to like 75 kilometers an hour. I think that's what we were roughly sitting at when we're using the tank. And of course, if you're going downhill, even faster using the turbo. So it really does feel super quick, and pretty much is the pinnacle of what you can expect from top speed limits in the game at tier 9, from the light tanks anyway. So Teethbreaker, well, you'll be seeing that the tank doesn't have the greatest of penetration. It does suck in this sort of area. 216 with the standard, 236 with the premium, and then, of course, the ultimate thing about this tank, 80 damage. Yes, 80 damage. That puts it on the lowest end of pretty much any tank within the game. Even tier 3s don't have that low damage in a lot of cases. But the Teethbreaker, with its 80 damage, can certainly rack up a lot of damage because it has a 15-shot autoloader. But the funny thing about this tank is that its intricate reload is 0.4 seconds. So you're firing off 2.5 of these shells every single second, and at the end of the day your average DPM is actually really high for a tier 9 light tank. You got 3,242 as we've currently got it set up. Now, and talking about setup, we've got ourselves the gun stabilizer for the improved accuracy. We want to make sure that you've got this, especially if you're using turbo mode a lot, because this will help out massively with being able to hit things on the move. And of course it's a light tank, so you want to be able to hit things on the move. Then we've got advanced optics. This is pretty much a crucial skill for any light tank in the game if you're going to play even remotely like a light tank. And then you've got advanced concealment to remain undetected. Now, talking about detection and actual camo, this tank is actually pretty good. 500 meters view range for a tier 9 light tank is decent, as well as having 265 still concealment. But it isn't the best in the game by far. It certainly does not rival some of the other smaller vehicles that you see in the game, but think of it almost like a hybrid between a T49 and something like an AMX 1390, whereby you have the bigger profile, because at the end of the day it's pretty much looks like an STB1, albeit a skin version goes much faster, so you're quite big, you're a big target compared to something like this. You can see just from the side profile, much bigger. and you don't have any armor with this vehicle. Literally none, which means you're going to be able to get penned a lot. And although you may bounce a couple off of the turret of this tank, it's really not going to happen all too often. So just be aware that this tank has a huge profile, but the armor doesn't really work. But it still can pull off bounces occasionally, so it's benefit over something like an AMX 1390. But of course, you sacrifice the high damage of each of the clips, or each of the shots in the clip. And so in order to make this tank work, you need to really target out a single opponent and circle strafe them, going round and round against them. It's going to work really, really well because you have that super high DPM when you do use this tank. And so yeah, it feels really, really nice to have that. And of course, with the top speed, it's easy to circle people, so it really doesn't feel too bad. And considering the size, the actual turning radius of this thing is pretty good as well, so you feel really nice when it comes to that location. And of course, if you are struggling with maybe hitting shots and stuff like that, you can switch into the normal mode by using the left on the D-pad, I believe, on Xbox, and whatever the equivalent is on PS, which will just be probably left on the D-pad as well, as a default. Sometimes maybe you've changed it in the settings, but either way, that is kind of where it's at. The Teethbreaker, yeah, certainly feels like a bit of an interesting vehicle, but is it that competitive? I'd probably say for the majority of players, it really isn't a competitive tank. It's more of a novel, unique and cool, fun tank that I think is really, really cool to have in the game. And unlike a lot of the premiums Wargaming release, this one's probably quite balanced. And that's a great thing considering all of the overpowered tanks that we've had in the past. Of course, this has been in the game for a little while and you've probably not seen a whole lot of them because, yeah, it isn't the best tank in the game, but it certainly feels really, really good to play, and I really enjoyed playing it even if you don't have the best games in the world. Of course, yeah, you do have to fire quite a few premium rounds with this tank, which can be very expensive, and it doesn't also get a silver bonus. Yeah, it can be quite expensive to use this tank, but other than that, let's have a look at the Ignis Pachio, which is the Cold War version of what we've just seen, or at least of the new event mode. So if we find the Ignis, here we go. This is where it starts to get super interesting. So much like the Teethbreaker, it is an autoloader with its main gun. It gets a really nice 150 damage per shell with very, very bad penetration for a Cold War Era 2 vehicle. You literally have some terrible statistics with its penetration, 280 and 360 with its premium, meaning if you actually want to pen things, you unfortunately have to fire premium, much like the Teethbreaker. You see where I'm getting at with both of these vehicles, and that can be a real problem for trying to earn silver. And I consistently lost silver when I was playing this vehicle, albeit some of the games weren't the best in the world as I was playing it, how do you say, very aggressively and just YOLOing things. But of course you don't want to be doing that in the majority of cases, and so it's not going to be a problem for you. This tank, unlike the Teethbreaker, gets a 50% silver bonus. It is an actual premium vehicle, so that's the nice thing about this tank. You can earn silver. But the one big problem with it is that it gets a missile launcher, which you can use in combination with firing off your autoloader. So you have the autoloader, you fire off a couple shells, you swap to your missile launcher, fire that off for 700 damage, and then swap back to your autoloader, and then, yeah, you know, you can finish off the clip and then reload your missile launcher and fire that off again, and then by that time you're probably reloaded on your main gun again and you can go again. And so it makes it an amazing tank to play and really does feel quite cool to play. It's not overpowered because its penetration does really suck, and it relies upon you kind of finding people out in the open, finding them in locations where you can single them out. And much like the Teethbreaker, this tank is very good one-on-one, but as soon as you come into contact with multiple opponents, you'll find yourself being at a worse end because you only have a clip, and once you've finished off that clip, You then have a long 30-second reload time to fully reload, and although the DPM of this thing's pretty good at 4,600, when you then run out of your ammo, you're a sitting duck for opponents to come in, and with the weight changes and stuff like that, and over time with the more overpowered vehicles coming out within Era 2, this tank is probably left lacking in some departments, albeit it is a relatively balanced vehicle in how it plays right now. And with that missile launcher, it really feels like you can just stomp someone out of the game by using the missiles and the autoloader together. And in terms of setting this tank up, much like the Teethbreaker, because it's quite fast at 65 kilometers an hour, we're using vehicle movement accuracy bonuses and turret rotation bonuses in gun stabilizer, so we can basically be more accurate on the move, which you're going to be on the move a lot in this vehicle, so make sure that you got this one on. We've gone with ventilation to buff the DPM of the tank, since you can't do it with rapid advanced loader because you can't put it on an autoloader. And then you've got advanced optics for increased view range, so we can spot people and find out where they are. Maybe you get hit or something like that and you want to know exactly where they are, so you can target where you're going to go next. And so that kind of works quite well. Enhanced missile warning system, probably not that worth it for a tank like this, since you're going to be on the move a lot, and if you get hit by a missile anyway, it's whatever. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's going to be difficult to hit you anyway because you're traveling so fast, and yeah, you've got a missile of your own to fire off anyway, so not really worth it in my opinion. And so this is kind of the build I would go for. You could swap out some of the equipment, like maybe the advanced optics, to go for some speed boost equipment to go even faster, which is potentially an option, but it's really down to you. I feel like this tank is probably a very, very fun one, but remember, you are going to lose quite a bit of silver because it is expensive to fire off these rounds. Yeah, very expensive indeed. And when you're only dealing 150 damage, you can see where I'm coming from. It does have a 20 round autoloader though, so that is a big bonus. So you can deal 3,000 damage with your clip with this thing, and then fire off 700, so a total damage of 3,700 potentially within one engagement, which makes this tank very, very dangerous if you see it come up from behind you or find you in a location where you're on your own. So make sure that if you see one of these things, you're trying to find a teammate to come and support you with. But the Ignis Pachio and the Teethbreaker, which one should you go with in this kind of event? Which one do you actually pick? Well, it depends on one of two things. Are you interested in a purely fun vehicle and don't care what game mode that you play it in? Well, I would have to say the Ignis Pachio is probably the funner of the two vehicles, especially if you platoon up with your friends, because that is where I had a ton of fun with Rikki Tikki Tavi, where we were just playing around and essentially just YOLOing people with both of us using the Ignis and just singling out targets and removing them within, 5-6 seconds, with us both firing off our missiles and using our autoloader at the same time. People just melted. So yeah, it was a ton of fun working as a platoon, and a ton of fun when you're on your own as well, because yeah, you get all of the damage then. But yeah, the Ignis Pachio, a very, very fun tank. If you're not bothered about which game mode you play, this is the one to go for, I think, in my opinion, which is the Imperium Season Challenge, which is why, just to back up what I'm saying, I went for the Imperium here. So this is the tank I will be picking up in this event. So definitely worth recommending as a tank to get. But the Teethbreaker, if you're interested in a tank that is quite rare and novel and unique for the World War II game mode with the turbo mechanic, this is potentially one that I think you can't really go wrong with. So the Teethbreaker itself was a really, really fun vehicle. It gets these rocket boosters which come out of the rockets at the back of the tank that you can see in the center of the screen right now. They come out of the left and right hand side. It's a cool looking tank and it plays really, really fun. So overall, my vote would be the Ignis for most people if you are interested in playing Cold War, but if you are staunchly against it, then the Teethbreaker is your only real option for this event. And so with that being said, hopefully that's kind of fleshed out what these tanks are all about. And of course, if you've got any questions, or maybe you're wondering whether to pick up any of the other mercenary tanks, leave your questions in the comment section down below and I'll try my best to answer them. But if you see anyone else's question that you can answer, then feel free to do that as well. And of course, check out these videos on the recent kind of additions and me actually playing this live with Ricky in this stream on screen right now, which should be on the left of your screen. And of course, the How to Get Better at World of Tanks playlist on the right hand side for a variety of guides about all things World of Tanks console related. And hopefully you'll join me in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.